Ming Dynasty took the initiative to escort Buddhism to China through the Silk Route, starting from 600 AD onwards. It is believed that two Buddhist scholars, one named Matongo Kassap Si Matyang and Vabana Gobakaran Ju Faliang, visited China at the invitation of Emperor Ming and laid the foundation of Buddhism by the patronage of the emperor. Visit of one of the Bengali Buddhist scholar, Atish Dipankar, Sri Gyan, to one of the Buddhist monastery in Tibet back in 1040 AD is also a historical landmark in relationship between India and China. There is no evidence of any political dispute between India and China before 1962 on the issue of border dispute. Controversial points are the McMahon Line at the eastern boundary with Arunachal Pradesh and McDonnell Line at the western boundary with Uttarakhand. Those were drawn by British Indian government taking full advantage of the weakness of Chinese government of late 19th century. Delineation of boundary is always based on a bilateral agreement, but following transfer of power to India in 1947, instead of bilateral arrangement with neighboring China, India government took the British imposition of border as final boundary. Subsequent Chinese government of Kuomintang, headed by Chiang Kai-shek, never recognized these boundaries either. In fact, claim of Kuomintang government was even more of Indian territory than what is in dispute now. Back in 1962, soon after China inflicted a crushing defeat on India during the armed conflict on McMahon Line, India approached Taiwan government for support on that conflict. Formosa government released a formal statement at the end of October 1962. They stated the so-called McMahon Line is a line unilaterally claimed by the British during their rule over India. The government of the Republic of China has never accepted this line of demarcation and is strongly opposed to the British claim. Prime Minister of India has issued a statement where he made it clear that no one has entered or occupied any part of Indian territory. Let's take a listen.
न वहां कोई हमारी सीमा में घुस आया है, न ही कोई घुसा हुआ है, न ही हमारी कोई पोस्ट किसी दूसरे के कब्जे में है। लद्दाख में हमारे 20 जाबाज शहीद हुए, लेकिन जिन्होंने भारत माता की तरफ आंख उठाकर देखा था, उन्हें वो सबक सिखा कर गए हैं।
Given that no encroachment has taken place, then why there is national and international propaganda is being trumped up on China bashing? Let us try to study some facts and then understand that what is presented to the people is very different from what is happening behind the scene. As Anglo-American West won the Second World War, where 25 lakh, 2.5 million Indian soldiers fought along with about the same number of British troops, where India supplied enormous amount of foodstuff and military hardwares as support to war effort, where 4 million Bengali civilians, including women and children, were starved to death because British government forcefully acquired foodstuff from Bengal to build a reserve for British Army. This barbaric genocide was also said to be a retaliation against a Bengali hero like Subhash Chandra Bose, whose Azad Hind Fauj, that is Indian National Army, was next door to Myanmar, about to enter India through northeast frontier. Not a word is ever mentioned anywhere. It is understandable why West remains silent about these facts. After all, slaves never get credit for services to their master's success. But these brutal facts, which should be made known through schooling to the future generation of India, are also by design effectively hushed up and history falsified to degrade and nip national pride and glorify the West. Question is why? Is it because India is still obliged and bound by some kind of undisclosed secret treaty that obliges her to look after the interest of her colonial masters even now? Why am I relating to these facts? This is to wake you up to the reality that India is ruled to this day in the interest of Anglo-American West. To accept or reject is your choice. Let's take a listen.
तो 24 घंटे पहले हमारे प्रधानमंत्री कहते थे कि ब्रिटेन की रानी को भारत में आने की कोई जरूरत नहीं है। मात्र 24 घंटे के बाद हमारे प्रधानमंत्री ने एक दूसरा वक्तव्य दिया कि ब्रिटेन की महारानी को हिंदुस्तान में आने के लिए भारत सरकार स्वागत करेगी। और उसके साथ साथ एक बात और उन्होंने कही कि ब्रिटेन की महारानी को भारत में आने के लिए कोई वीजा लेने की जरूरत नहीं है। माने बिना वीजा के ब्रिटेन की महारानी भारत में आ सकती है। तो हमारे देश के प्रधानमंत्री की गुलामी की हालत का आप अंदाजा लगाइए कि 24 घंटे पहले एक बात कह रहे हैं और 24 घंटे के अंदर आपको वक्तव्य बदलना पड़ा और उनके स्वागत की तैयारी भी करनी पड़ी। तो मैंने कहा वो कौन सा कानून है? तब उन्होंने मुझे बताया कि 1947 के साल में एक कानून बना था जिसका नाम है इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट। और यह कानून बना था 4 जुलाई 1947 को, माने 15 अगस्त से लगभग 10-15 दिन पहले। तो यह कानून बना था हमारे देश में आजादी के पहले और इस कानून का नाम है इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट। उस कानून के आधार पर ब्रिटेन की महारानी अगर हिंदुस्तान में आएगी तो उसको वीजा लेने की जरूरत नहीं है। तो मैंने कहा कि वो कानून आप मुझे दे सकते हैं पढ़ने के लिए? तो उन्होंने कहा मेरे पास तो उसकी कॉपी नहीं है। तो मैंने कहा कहां से मिलेगी? तो उन्होंने कहा कोशिश करो भारत की संसद की लाइब्रेरी में मिल जाए, तुमको पार्लियामेंट की लाइब्रेरी में मिल जाए। हम लोगों ने बहुत कोशिश की, नहीं मिल पाई। फिर दूसरी एक कोशिश की तो उसमें थोड़ी सफलता मिली। उस कानून की फोटोकॉपी लंदन से आई, लंदन के हाउस ऑफ कॉमन्स की लाइब्रेरी में पड़ी हुई है। तो वहां से वो कॉपी आई और सबसे पहले हम लोगों ने वो कानून को पढ़ने की कोशिश की। तो उसमें लिखा हुआ है, पूरे कानून की बातें 70-80 पन्नों में हैं, लेकिन कानून के प्रियम्बल में बहुत साफ साफ लिखा हुआ है। एक वाक्य लिखा है, 4 जुलाई 1947 को पारित हुए इंडियन इंडिपेंडेंस एक्ट में। और यह कानून पारित क्यों किया गया है? भारत की आजादी के लिए यह कानून पारित किया गया ब्रिटेन की पार्लियामेंट में। माने हमको आजादी मिल रही है तो हमारी आजादी का कानून विदेशी संसद में पारित हुआ है। और अगर हमारी आजादी का कानून एक विदेशी संसद ने पारित किया है तो वो विदेशी संसद अगर उस कानून को वापस ले ले तो हमारी आजादी का क्या होगा?
Here is another one. You can see and hear Arvind Kejriwal is talking about launching the second freedom movement. This freedom is against poverty, corruption, etc. But originally, this movement targeted against Angrezi and Angreziyat, meaning the system is in India is operating in the interest of the West and their junior partners, the Anglophonic Indians, for whose interest the system is designed and runs. Let's take a listen.
ये पूरी लड़ाई अरविंद केजरीवाल को मुख्यमंत्री बनाने की नहीं है। ये एक शुरुआत है, आज़ादी की दूसरी लड़ाई है। जब तक इस देश को भ्रष्टाचार से, भुखमरी से, अन्याय से मुक्ति नहीं मिल जाती, ये लड़ाई जारी रहेगी। लेकिन आज एक ऐतिहासिक दिन है, आज एक आम आदमी की जीत है और मुझे लगता है इस देश के अगर सारे लोग इकट्ठे हो जाएं तो हम सब मिलकर इस देश को बदल सकते हैं। केजरीवाल का
all the facts we just outlined, what is the relevance to our main point, which is India free to become friendly with China? Answer is no. Over the last 3 to 4 decades, China and the West had great political and economic relationship. Despite intermittent border problems with India, relationship with India was also very peaceful. What changed? Now let us try to understand what changed. Over the last few decades, China played the role of exporter to the Western market. Multinational Western companies shifted their manufacturing units to China and made full use of Chinese raw materials and cheap labor that helped to reduce their production cost. They brought good quality, inexpensive commodities made in China to the Western markets and made enormous profit, which they could not get otherwise. That made China greatly dependent on Western market, Western capital, and Western technology. Profit of the Western multinationals was skyrocketing, and they had no competition to worry about in the international market. The post-war world is used to see anyone showing slightest sign of opposition or going against the interest of Anglo-American West were instantly eliminated, like Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and Aden, and more recently Iran. Some of these states were to bypass petrodollars and were trying to install an alternative exchange medium by accepting each other's currency, which China, Russia, Venezuela, and Iran are now trying to introduce. In the meantime, highly experienced and brilliant Chinese leadership, while pretending to be dutiful and docile exporters and cheap labor to the West, built up their own domestic market and acquired technology through widespread, extensive, and indigenous schooling that promoted multidisciplinary research, highly skilled and disciplined labor force. Obvious consequence of such social transformation is inevitable competition with the West. Unlike the Western institutions like IMF, World Bank, and multiple other international agencies who pauperize third world countries in the name of aid, China, on the other hand, reached out to them with genuine support on inclusive growth and development, which the third world countries otherwise have never been able to initiate on their own during the last 75 years. This is what Belt and Road Initiative of China is all about. And this is exactly what US is all out to sabotage. It is interesting that India is one of the few third world countries that is opposed to Belt and Road Initiative of China. Past 200 years without own army, own police, own bureaucracy, and financial resources, West has colonized and subjugated what is now called third world countries and exploited human, natural, and economic resources of the colonized countries to enrich themselves. In this process, they created a native ruling class who is slavishly loyal to the interest of the colonizers and dutifully and loyally exploit and subjugate their own people to protect the interest of their colonial masters along with their own. Like it or not, now there is a new player in the world scene that West never ever had to encounter in the past, and that player is China. Size of their human resource, kind of disciplined workforce, so well organized, educated, and motivated through indigenous schooling in combination with the nature of experienced leadership, influenced by 10,000 years of civilization, has never emerged in world scene. This is unlike other populous countries like India, where role of the population is to pay various type of taxes, which is the main source of national wealth. That is for the native ruling class to forfeit and transfer to Western banks. In order to confront China, West must have access to the natural, economic, and human resources of India, which help them to dominate the world. Their current domination of the world is also because of their access to Indian resources through the native ruling class. This control they cannot and will not give up unless forced to. So a confrontation between India and China under any kind of pretext will work in favor of the West. Why? Their military-industrial complex will be able to sell more and more weapons to India, which is mainly the purpose of Pompeo's visit to India. Confrontation between India and China will be exploited by the West to launch fierce negative propaganda to demonize China. West may hope to exhaust China by engaging into a conflict with India, and thus its competitive edge might even be diminished. These might very well be wishful thinking for West, but they will continue to try by using India as their pawn. If India at some point decides to move out of the orbit of the West to look after their own interest and try to be friendly with China, Indians may find secession movements brewing in the north. Eastern states instigated by the church. Religious strife between Hindu and Muslim may intensify to the point of partition. Problem in Kashmir may deteriorate. West has made enough inroads and maintained enough control in key sectors of Indian economy and administration to splinter the country if and when they find their interest is not met. The ruling elites will be in full compliance. The people in the street will be the one paying the price.